Picture this, a vast African reserve, stretching endlessly under the burning sun, and walking through it, completely alone, is a single lioness. No pride, no family, just her. Her name is Kira, and she's the last of her kind in this place. The only lion left standing after years of tragedy wiped out everyone she ever knew. But here's the thing, she wasn't going to stay alone for long. What happened next became one of the most incredible wildlife stories ever told, and I promise you, it's going to blow your mind. So let's rewind a bit. This reserve in South Africa used to be paradise for lions. A thriving pride ruled the land, powerful and untouchable. But then everything changed. Poaching started picking them off one by one. Disease swept through like wildfire. And before anyone could stop it, the entire pride was gone. Every single lion, except one. Kira. She was young, barely an adult, and suddenly she was the only heartbeat left in a territory that once echoed with roars. The rangers who worked there were heartbroken, but they saw something in her. Hope. Raw, stubborn hope. They fitted her with a GPS collar and set up cameras across the reserve to keep an eye on her. And honestly, watching her survive alone was already remarkable. She hunted by herself, defended her territory by herself, lived life on her own terms, fierce and unshakable. But then one ordinary morning, everything shifted. A ranger was checking the camera traps and noticed something unusual in the footage. Kira's movements had changed. She was slower, more cautious. And when they examined the tracks she left in the grass, they saw signs that made their hearts race. She was pregnant. Now, pause for a second and think about what that means. A lioness, completely alone, about to give birth in the wild. No sisters to help her hunt. No pride to protect her cubs. No backup whatsoever. It was thrilling, sure, but it was also terrifying. The survival rate for cubs in a normal pride is already tough. But this was borderline impossible. The head ranger, a guy we'll call Malik, immediately took charge of monitoring her. He'd spent decades working with lions, and he knew the odds. But he also knew Kira. She was a survivor. Over the next few months, Malik and his team watched her closely. The GPS collar tracked her every move. The cameras captured her daily routines, and what they saw surprised them. Kira's belly was growing bigger. Way bigger than it should for a typical litter. Most lionesses carry 2, maybe 3 cubs. But Kira, she looked like she was carrying an entire pride. Malik started to suspect something extraordinary was happening. She began acting differently too. Digging shallow holes in the ground, changing her sleeping spots every few days like she was testing out nurseries. Restless, preparing. And then one evening, the GPS alert went off. Kira hadn't moved in over 18 hours. That's not normal. Lions don't just sit still. Malik's gut twisted. Something was wrong. He sent up a drone immediately, and what the footage showed made his blood run cold. Kira was lying on her side, gasping for air, her body slick with blood. She was in labor, and she was in serious trouble. If this story is hitting you right where it matters, do me a favor. Tap that like button and drop a comment saying yes, so I know you're feeling this. And if you want more stories that'll restore your faith in the wild, hit subscribe. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Alright, back to Kira. Malik didn't waste a second. He grabbed Dr. Liana, the reserve's lead veterinarian, and they tore through the reserve in a truck. Rain hammering the windshield, racing against time. When they finally reached her, the scene was devastating. Under the harsh glow of the headlights, Kira lay trembling in the mud, her belly soaked in blood. 3 tiny cubs were already on the ground, wet and barely moving. But Kira's labor wasn't over. Her body was still contracting, still trying to push, but she was too weak. She was dying right in front of them. Dr. Liana moved fast. She pulled out a syringe of uterine stimulant and injected Kira, hoping to help her body complete the delivery. Malik held the flashlight steady, his hands shaking, and then, slowly, a fourth cub emerged. Tenafifth, much smaller and weaker than the others. And then, against all odds, a sixth. Tiny, limp, barely breathing. 6 cubs. 6. That's almost unheard of in the wild, but there was no time to celebrate. Kira collapsed completely. Her eyes rolled back. She wasn't moving, and the smallest cub, the 6th one, lay motionless in the dirt, not even gasping for air. Dr. Liana didn't hesitate. She scooped up the tiny body and started massaging its chest, desperate, rhythmic compressions. Meanwhile, Malik worked on Kira, cleaning her wounds, pumping fluids into her veins, doing everything he could to keep her alive. The rain kept falling. The minutes dragged on like hours, and then, finally, the smallest cub let out the faintest sound, a weak, raspy exhale. It was alive, but they weren't out of the woods yet. Kira was still unconscious. 2 of the 6 cubs, including the one they'd just revived, were too weak to nurse on their own. They needed intensive care, or they wouldn't make it through the night. So Malik and Dr. Liana made a tough call. They took the 2 weakest cubs and drove them 30 kilometers to the Wildlife Intensive Care Center, leaving the other 4 nestled against their mother's warm body. It was a gamble, but it was the only shot they had. At dawn, something miraculous happened. Kira stirred. Her eyes blinked open, still hazy, but focused, and the first thing she did was look for her cubs. When she saw the 4 little bodies curled against her, she let out a soft, rumbling roar. Not a roar of pain or fear. Row of low. She started licking them, slowly, gently, cleaning each one like she'd been doing it her whole life. She was alive, and she was a mother. Back at the care center, the 2 weak cubs were fighting for their lives. The team named them Tamu and Sarah. They were fed every 2 hours, kept warm under heat lamps, monitored around the clock, and slowly, day by day, they got stronger. By the 6th day, they opened their eyes. Their little bodies filled out. They started making sounds. They were ready to go home, but here's the tricky part. Would Kira accept them? Lions have an incredibly strong sense of smell. If the cubs didn't smell like her, she might reject them. Or worse, she might see them as threats. So the team wrapped Hamu and Sierra in an old towel that had been rubbed all over Kira days before. They drove him back to the reserve, hearts pounding, hoping this would work. When they placed the cubs near Kira, everyone held their breath. Kira lifted her head. She sniffed them slowly. Long, deliberate sniffs. And then she did something that brought tears to everyone's eyes. She licked their heads, gently, lovingly. No growls. No hesitation. She knew they were hers. All 6 cubs were together. Safe, alive. Now, word of Kira's story spread like wildfire. News outlets picked it up. Conservation groups from around the world reached out offering support. Scientists confirmed what Malik had suspected. This was one of the rarest lion births ever recorded. 6 cubs born in the wild to a lone lioness with 0 pride support. The odds of this happening, astronomical. The odds of all 6 surviving, even more impossible. But here they were, thriving. The team fitted each cub with a small, non-invasive tracking device so they could monitor their growth and movement. They wanted to make sure this new generation had every possible chance. And as the weeks turned into months, something beautiful started to unfold. Tamu and Sarah, the 2 who'd been on the brink of death, grew into the strongest, boldest cubs of the group. They were the first to explore, the first to play fight, the first to follow their mother on hunts. They'd been given a second chance, and they were owning it. One golden afternoon, months after that terrifying night, Malik stood on a hill overlooking the reserve. Down below, in the tall grass, Kira rested with all 6 of her cubs sprawling around her. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. A soft breeze carried the sound of a young cub's roar, still high-pitched and adorable, but growing stronger every day. Dr. Liana walked up beside Malik and stood there in silence for a moment, Hoost watching. Then she whispered, "We didn't just save a lioness. We saved the future." Malik smiled. She was right. From the ashes of a lost pride, from the loneliness of a single lioness, a new generation had risen, a miracle born in the heart of Africa. So here's the thing, Kira's story isn't just about survival. It's about resilience. It's about the power of hope when everything seems lost. It's about a team of people who refuse to give up, even when the odds were stacked against them. And it's about life finding a way, even in the harshest, most impossible circumstances. If you believe that animals feel love, real, deep love, just like we do, smash that like button. If you think every single life, no matter how small, matters, drop a comment and let me know. And if this story moved you, if it made you feel something real, hit that subscribe button because I've got so many more stories like this one. Stories that'll remind you why this planet is worth fighting for. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.